we should go. We should go. I'm here, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with, and we just like sit there for a few seconds, and then you
Crickets,
go,
crickets.
and Jessica Carr,
And Jessica Carr.
like the
And
other
now
people.
we're going to talk about Drive My Car. It all makes sense.
You're not driving me. You're driving a real car.
You're driving an actual car.
Shit.
It was so funny. I listened to that episode when Andrew and Seth said their name at the same time. It was so funny. They said their name at the same time, and then also the part where you guys were joking about money laundering, and then Seth was like, "Ooh, I want some," and I thought that was so funny.
Seth is our stealth comedian.
I love whenever someone just says something that I don't think other people catch, and then whenever you're listening to it, you catch it, and it's like very funny. I like that.
I don't usually. I catch them. I forgot why we have this as a fun fact.
I don't know
I
either.
don't remember. I usually catch it in the edit. Because I'll be like, what is Seth saying right here? And I'll be like, oh, he's just that, and I'll just like toss the comment in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's funny. I like it.
All right, let's talk. All right, let's talk about stuff.
Head on.
Ugh.
All right. So the order is you, and then I'll go.
And then like a moment of silence, and then yeah, you can go.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Let's go. Let's do it.
All right, and 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 394 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Jessica Carr.
That's it. We got a two people podcast today, guys.
Two people podcast. The last time we did this was for like the audition episode, I think, which is
Similar movie this week.
No,
too.
it is the opposite.
It's the same thing.
It's not a woman torturing.
So, to all the boys I've tortured
I've
before.
tortured before. I knew you were gonna say that.
I'm super clever. In this week's episode, we're going to be concluding the romance series with the 2018 film To All the Boys I've Loved Before. And in part one, we're going to be talking about movies that we saw this week. So let's go ahead and jump into that. If you have not listened to the other movies that were in the series, head back over to cinematary.com. Find us on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got the whole series in there. We're going to talk a little bit about our next series that honestly the two of us really don't know how to explain, so we'll just save that for the end of the podcast. So if you want to hear us babble through whatever Andrew's came up with into the podcast.
Yeah, I wish Andrew just gave us something to read, because I would have just read it. So
yeah, I mean, I would have read it like a statement, but instead we're going cold turkey, so it'll be fun. But let's go ahead and jump into movies that we saw this week. This was one that we talked about a little bit last week, but I know you caught it before, and I watched it over the weekend. But as Drive My Car, the Best Picture nominee by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. For those who maybe didn't remember Jesse's long plot synopsis from last week, the movie is it starts with kind of a prologue where you get to know the main character, Yusuke Kafuku, who is a stage actor and a director, and you're mainly spending time with him and his wife, and then over the course of the prologue, by the end, his wife unexpectedly passes away, and then the real movie plot picks up, and it is him 2 years after her death, going to a theater festival in Hiroshima where he is directing a Chekhov play that was the Chekhov play that he was acting in at the time of her death. And so he's kind of working through still working through his grief for his wife. And he is, and it's really funny, like how they set up the whole, like he has to have a driver. It's a kind of a silly way they set it up, but it still works for the plot of the movie. But he is set up with this driver who is this young woman who has to drive him from his hotel to the theater festival. And driving is very much like a ritual to him because he likes to listen to these tapes that his wife has put together. And it is, they're lines from the play. And so she reads all of the other parts, and then he reads his parts, and kind of that's how it's his process as he goes into the day. But yeah, Jessica, I know you saw this a couple weeks ago and were a fan. What did you make of Drive My Car?
Yeah, so I thought that the movie was pretty moving. I didn't really know what exactly to expect from it. I haven't seen anything from this director, but I know that his movies have been talked about quite a bit. Like he did the Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy
Hmm.
movie it was on our list, like our best
Hmm.
of 2021 list. And so I that kind of piqued my interest and I kind of started looking into more of his stuff. And then this movie came to Central Cinema, our local movie theater here in Knoxville, and so I decided to check it out. And I wasn't disappointed. I thought that it was very good. It was very slow moving, and it really builds. You get to spend a lot of time with the characters, especially the main character.
Hmm.
And the only parts that I thought that it was too long. First of all, it's like a 3 hour long
It
movie.
is 3 hours long.
Yeah, it's a 3 hour long movie. I felt like it was way too long and it kind of overstayed its welcome for me a little bit. Um, the parts of the movie that I would have definitely trimmed were the play parts of the movie. There are so many
Mm.
extended scenes of just scenes of the play or of him in the car saying the lines over and over and over again, and it's not really adding to the narrative at all or saying anything for the story. Like there are definitely moments in the car where he's bonding with the driver, and parts of the lines of the play seem to be sinking in for her also. And those were obviously parts that were important, but there were other parts where he was literally just reciting the lines of the play. And at that point, I felt like I was watching the movie and I was watching the play at the same time, which
Mhm.
just also felt kind of like overwhelming for me. Um, but other than that, like it just being very long and that sort of making like weighing the movie down to me. But it's a pretty emotionally heavy film. One of the things that I took away from it, like theme wise, is just about like what do you do when this person who is supposed to love you actually hurts you and does something to you that is kind of like irreconcilable, and those people also like they have a sudden death or they disappear from your life suddenly, and how do you get closure from that? And
Mhm.
so like the main character's wife, you find out, cheats on him and he knows about it and she's been doing it for a while, and
Mhm.
she usually sleeps with these like younger actors because she is like a producer or writer for like a TV show
Yeah, something
company,
like that.
and she's always sleeping with the lead actors in all of her like TV shows that she writes for, and he knows about it. And then there's a a moment on the day that she dies where she tells him like, we need to talk, like I need to talk to you about something. And then she dies like suddenly, and he doesn't know what to do with that. He has no closure. He can never have that conversation with her, and so a lot of the movie is him kind of coming to terms with that and figuring out what to do about it. And then his driver, also, she has a mentally ill mother, and her mom abuses her, and there's like a avalanche or something like that, some natural disaster,
A landslide.
landslide, yeah.
Yeah.
The avalanche, same thing. The big snow like crushing their
Just
house.
imagine like the scene in like Mulan where like the mountain just comes off and then her
Yes,
house is there at the bottom. No,
exactly.
it's just a landslide.
Yeah, so that the landslide, like, comes down on their house or whatever, and she has the opportunity to save her mom and she doesn't. but also this woman abused her. So it kind of like makes sense that she wouldn't do that, but she thinks that it's her fault that her mom died. And so it's like two characters who find each other at this point in their lives where they need this closure and they don't really know what to do with it. And that to me is like the most important thing that the film is doing. There are lots of other things that you can point to about it just being talking about like the cycles of life and people being set to go on a certain path and then something abruptly stopping that. And I think that all of those things like work really well with the movie and are very beautifully done. And you can connect a lot of, I mean, the movie's 3 hours long, so you can connect like tons of parallels between things happening and characters saying things and it coming back around to meaning like this other thing. And that to me is really like the core of the film, and I thought that those parts were really moving. The side note is that my favorite character is the one who is mute and she uses sign language to speak, and it actually like inspired me to start learning sign language because I was just like enamored by her like using sign language. I have a couple of deaf customers when I'm at the farmers market, and I really wanted to start being able to communicate with them. And so I'm learning a little bit of stuff here and there, but that
Mhm.
I think that that is really that's what's really beautiful about movies too, is that you might not get something that you expect out of it. And I thought that the writing was really well done, and I do think that after watching this that I would probably want to watch his other films as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The deaf character also is really well. The whole play is kind of unique because you have what is it? You have all of these actors who like speak different languages. Like you have
Yeah.
the one woman who speaks Mandarin and
Mm,
English, but then most of them speak like Japanese. Then you have the deaf actor who's doing sign language, but it's like
mm,
It's sign language in Korean.
mm, mm,
Um, yeah, that whole like it's just kind of fascinating. They have you see like the thing like when they're actually having the play, they have like a kind of not a teleprompter, but like a big screen on the back where it has like all of the like the translated language, which is kind of
mm,
cool. Um, yeah, it's to me I kind of agree that you have these like elongated sequences with the plays. Though to me, the length didn't totally bug me because I think it's a movie. Um, it has a handful of sequences like very talky centerpiece sequences where like you think of like the scene between the actor and the director in the car when they're talking back and forth. There's a lot of sequences where it's like the setup is like this is a big talky sequence, like this is a big kind of this would be the action set piece of the Drive My Car movie. And then the rest of the movie is just kind of like it's one of those movies where you're very much just supposed to ruminate in this space. And it's a very comforting, even though it's a very sad movie, it's like a very comforting movie at the same time. It has this score, and I don't want to mess up I did put it, I got it on Spotify immediately after because I really liked it. Um, Iko Ishibashi did the original soundtrack and the score for this, and it's just like this very kind of jazzy, classical score that feels that like that paired with the kind of wintry um, urban landscape of like Hiroshima was just kind of it was very calming, very and so you have a lot of these sequences like in the car where they're just kind of driving and I think it's one of those things where um I just think it's one of those kind of a lot of ruminating sequences that we as like Western audiences aren't super comfortable with. So that's why
mm,
it's so strange to me that one, this was a big hit over here, and also that it was nominated for for the Oscar Best Picture, just because it's a strange movie to get that, because it feels like it's a very Japanese movie. Like
mm.
you can feel it feels very indebted um oh shoot, his name just I mean like Ozu, but also Gosh, Mizuguchi. That's who I'm thinking of.
Mm-mm.
Mizuguchi in movies like that, where you just kind of have like these very. I think that they're kind of, at least for Ozu, they're very like spiritual moments of just kind of sitting in sitting in one place and just kind of thinking. And the scene is just, you have these actors just kind of living, and you're supposed to just kind of exist within the sequence at the same time. Um, I think this movie has a lot of those, and Hamaguchi does a great job of like kind of just capturing the headscape, the headspace, I think that the main actor, you capture just a lot of his, how he's processing things just through he doesn't do a lot with his face, but at the same time, like you can kind of see him like in his interactions with different people, just kind of processing emotions. And it kind of, it's one of those things where it's so subtle for 2 hours and 20 minutes that at the end of the movie, when he finally like really kind of has like an emotional scene, it does pay off, because you've seen this guy act very
Mm,
stoic for like 2.5 hours, and then he finally breaks down and you're like, yes, like it's a release, it's amazing.
mm,
um and I think that's one of those things, like that's the reason why you have a movie this long and why it pays off, because there is just like that slow quiet buildup that finally it builds up to something. You think of like Ozu movies where um it's everybody's kind of just mannered for most of the movie, and then you have like the kind of family breakdown, or you have a breakdown scene at the end, and it's like that's why I say it's a very Japanese movie, because it's just
mm.
very like it's kind of working on an emotional level like that. And so I think that's probably why I responded to it so much. I think that I don't I'm not I've never really had like, I think this is like a it's very universal. Everybody's dealt with grief in some way, and I think people can respond to it in that fashion. But at the same time, this has a very, as you described very well, like a very unique grief, where it's like these
Mm.
people who um these characters have kind of an unfinished um have an unfinished, business seems
Business, yeah.
like almost like ghostly, but like they have unfinished, just things with them, and then
Hmm.
but then that character dies, and so you're unable to kind of find that closure. And so um I that's not something that I necessarily dealt with, that I responded to well, but like I think that there are these very like specific human moments that happen throughout the film. I really like, you mentioned the deaf character. I really like the scene where you have the dinner with her and the guy who works at the theater festival.
Hmm.
It's just kind of this like very sweet, um, small scene where you kind of just understand these people. It's a very, I think if I'm understanding correctly, this director does a lot of these very like humanistic portraits. And on that level, like I responded to it really well. I liked it. I mean, I think again, it's probably a tough sell for some people, just because of the length and the way, in the kind of manner it goes about. But I think it's worth, if you meet it on its level and kind of sit with it, I think you'll respond to it well.
Yeah, I think that's
It's
fair.
it's still super strange that it's a Best Picture nominee. um because there's, it's a vastly different movie from like West Side Story.
Yeah.
But Drive My Car, it's on HBO Max now, so if you're unable to see it in the theater, but it's also been playing around in theaters as well. The next movie was one I talked about last week, but I'll be curious to kind of bounce thoughts off of somebody. And that's the Worst Person in the World, the new Joaquin Trier film. And then real quickly, like I mentioned, like I said last week, the film is about this character Julie. It follows 4 years of her life as she kind of transitions from her late 20s to her early 30s, and goes through these various mainly these two
Mm.
romances, specifically, but is also navigating like her career path and what she wants to do in life. Um, Jessica, I was a big fan of this one. What did you make of The Worst Person in the World?
Oh yeah, I liked it a lot. I'm super excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah,
I I have been hearing about this movie since like late last year,
you think
and
it was on the festival circuit?
yeah, and I a lot of critics that I liked were talking it up like this is so amazing and doing that thing that you do when you love like shots in a movie and just tweeting the gifs. And I kept seeing the gif of the guy like blowing the smoke into her mouth
Hmm.
during that like whole like scene, which was so just chef's kiss, like so beautiful. um but yeah, so I kept seeing like pieces of this movie, and when you start to do that, you're kind of like it was like building anticipation for me, and I thought that it was well earned, well deserved. It was very good. It was a lot more funny. It was way funnier than I thought that it was going to be.
It
Uh
was overall, for I don't know, for whatever reason, his some of his other movies I think have been more, they seem to me to be more serious, and so I thought it was going to be much more serious than it was. It was a very funny
yeah,
movie.
it was very funny, and there were even parts of it where I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be laughing at this or not. And we had a theater full of people. We were at like an 8 p.m. showing on a Sunday night, and our theater was like full of people, and there were just people in the back that were guffawing at like every single thing, and I was just like, damn y'all, it's not that funny, but it is still like pretty funny. But I don't know. I think that the main character Julie is kind of like, that like the Alana Haim character in Licorice Pizza, or like
Hmm.
the Greta Gerwig character in Frances Ha, where it's
Hmm.
like a woman in her 20s who is like trying to figure it out, and she's just bouncing around trying to find her identity, and she is also clinging on to these people who aren't necessarily the best for her, but she's like, well, I'm just trying to do what makes me happy in the moment, and I'm just plucking from whatever I can think of.
Well, and they have like very like they have identities. You know, they're very defined in who
Yeah.
they are, whether that's good or bad.
Right. And I think the thing that I liked most about this movie as opposed to like Francis Ha or Licorice Pizza, which I like both of those movies a lot, is that Julie like actually feels like a person I've met before,
Yeah.
where it is like a person who is like, I might not be making the best decisions, but damn it, I'm gonna decide on something. It's like, okay, like you do what you got to do. But there the thing that was like so different to me about this movie from those other ones also is that she seemed so, whenever she was deciding on something that had to do with her body, and she seemed so decisive about those things. Like when she was saying like I do not want to have a baby, she seemed like so incredibly decisive about that. And it was like, just whenever the guy just kept pushing it onto her about being like, well, I want to have children, and she was just like, I'm time when she decided like, okay, this relationship is over, she's like, I'm telling you right now, this relationship is over. And he spends like a whole day just trying to bargain with her and being like,
Hmm.
if you break up with me, you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. But she is like, I am so sure of this in this moment, like I am so sure of this. And that I just thought that that was like really interesting. And I think that what the movie is trying to do as a whole is that I think the title is supposed to be ironic, because it's like Julie is not the worst person in the world, we are all the worst person in the world, because everyone makes mistakes and everyone makes decisions that they regret. And there are people who are like Julie, where they do it all the time and they wear it on their sleeve and they're making all these decisions in public. But there are people who are hiding it, like where they're making these decisions and then saying, never mind, I'm flip flopping on it, and then they regret it.
Hmm.
And I think a couple of ways that you see that in the movie is that the second boy that she gets with, the kind of dumb barista one, is he says like, I also don't want to have children. I don't want to have kids. I don't want to have children. And the big reveal at the end is that he ends up just having a child with another woman after
Mhm.
they break up. And so it's like these people are saying like, I know who I am. I'm so decisive, but nobody knows who they are and nobody is decisive. Like it's like people are human and you can make mistakes and you can have regrets and there's no, like point A to B of like this is how you're supposed to be and these are the decisions you're supposed to make. And I really really enjoyed that like humanistic approach to it because
Mhm.
there are lots of times in the movie where I wondered, it does the movie want us to sympathize with Julie? Are we supposed to think like this person is just fucking up their life, or
Yeah.
are we supposed to be like on her side?
Yeah, it's a very it's like a kind of a perfect counter to a lot of the movies that we talked about in this series. I think and this isn't like taking a shot at the movie we'll talk about in part 2, but like you think about like the romance in that movie,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty like um there's they have faults, but it's very cute romance.
Mm-hmm.
There's no
Mm-hmm.
you kind of it's very defined on what the attributes are for the girl character and the boy character. And to your point, what I like about this movie is that everybody's kind of messy. Like you can understand what's appealing and what people like about Julie. She's very pretty. Even though she doesn't really know what she wants to do, she seems still very sure of herself in terms of like how she goes about things. She has kind of some brash tendencies where she just kind of just does stuff, but that's something that I think people find extremely attractive, and uh, people really like people who are just like, yeah, let's go do that, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the two guy characters that she gets with. They each have the attributes where you can go, I can see why she would be attracted to
Mm-hmm.
this person, but at the same time you go, this is also why this guy sucks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like I think of the Anders Danielson Lai character, like a lot of his personality just kind of sucks. Like he's just not
Mm-hmm.
like to me, I'm just like, this dude sucks. Like he's
Is that
just
the comic book guy?
the comic book guy.
Yeah,
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 he's
yeah, yeah.
he's just like a lot of his personality just sucks. He's very sure of himself. He's very
Mm-hmm.
he feels very highly about himself. He feels very highly about his opinions. But
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
same time, like they do, you can tell like in like the back half of the movie that they do have this like connection in terms of how they
Mm-hmm.
communicate. Like even though you may not totally love this guy,
Mm-hmm.
um I can, like, by the end of the movie, I'm like, yeah, I get why they were together. Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they do have this communication. It's the same with the other guy, that like I like that they're kind of messy characters, that you may not be in love with them. You're not going back going, this I love this guy character so much,
yeah.
but you can
Mm-hmm.
understand why the main character would be with that person.
Yeah, exactly. Two scenes that were the bomb. The first one, the mushroom scene, where
Yeah.
they're like tripping out on mushrooms, and she's just like falls backwards into the sunken place,
Hmm.
and then just looks down and she has like an old saggy woman's body.
Looks like that lady from Game of Thrones.
Yes. Also,
Yeah.
or like the lady's body in The Shining, like the old lady that
Yeah.
comes out, and it's just like, okay. And then the second one is the drum solo whenever
Hmm.
he is in the hospital room. I was just like, oh, so beautiful, so insanely directed. Like it was so pretty.
Yeah, there was a number of flourishes in this that like you could tell it was just a little bit, it was a step above
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
what other kind of, it could have been very cookie cutter in how it handled things, but
Yep, yep.
he clearly had like some fun to kind of like direct it a little bit and like play with the sound and play with the
Mm-hmm.
blocking and play with the staging. It was fun.
Yep.
It's a
Oh,
like
it's so
like
fun.
you said, it's a very fun, funny
Yeah.
movie. Which is it's strange for whatever reason. I just felt like it was going to be much more serious than it was supposed to be.
Oh yeah, I agree. You want to know what's gonna be cookie cutter and what isn't gonna be fun is the American remake with Dakota Johnson.
Are they actually making that, or is that
I
just a joke?
I thought that they legitimately were.
Oh, okay. I
I
thought it
don't
was a
know.
joke. I thought people were just joking around.
I don't know. I don't know. I hope they're joking, but like it's happened before, right? Like are they still working on the
Well,
Tony
I was gonna
Erdmann?
say they said they were gonna do a Tony Erdmann one, and they never did that one. So
Okay, well that's good because Tony Erdmann is very good and does
yeah.
not need it doesn't need a remake. People.
But yeah, the worst person in the world. It's in. I think it's been playing in theaters and such. It's nominated for a couple Oscars. I think like foreign language and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's good. I think I would again. I would like I said last week. I would recommend it to people. I think it's a cut above some stuff. I'm gonna wrap up the episode talking about the big movie of or at least of the past week
Of the year.
of the year so far. The Batman.
The Batman. Bruce
Um,
Wayne. Let's go.
Dude, let me tell you, it's emo Bat. I think you'll like the Batman, Jessica. Whenever you see.
Regular Batman is emo Batman. I keep hearing people say this.
No,
Batman
but
is emo Batman.
he had no, he like is playing it up because he has like long black hair and he's just always sitting like this, and he's and like there's two Nirvana needle drops. It's so fucking emo. It's hilarious.
Uh,
I found this movie way funnier than I think it was supposed to be. But the Batman, it stars Robert Pattinson as Batman. It also stars Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, Jeffrey Wright, John Turturro, Colin Farrell, a lot of people, Andy Serkis. Um, but yeah, this one, Batman is it's supposed to be kind of like he's a little ways into being Batman. It's not like an origin story, and it leans much more into like him as like a detective. It very much like Matt Reeves, the director, is kind of trying to make it a little bit like it feels very noirish. And so the criminal in this one is the Riddler, played by Paul Dano, who is also pretty much a serial killer, which has been getting a lot of comparisons to like it has it's clearly very influenced by like David Fincher. This kind of, as people have pointed out, this is kind of like, I mean, it's not exactly if David Fincher directed a superhero movie or a Batman movie, but it's about as close as you'll get to David Fincher directing a Batman movie. um and so pretty much the plot of it is him trying to solve these riddles and these string of murders because he's murdering prominent like officials. It starts with the murder of the mayor of Gotham City, and then he moves on to other prominent officials like in the city. But yeah, I liked Robert Pattinson. I think is a good actor. He's very fun in this role because he's just so emo, and he's just very like he's very like sad boy the entire time. I was very entertained by it. Like there's like one scene where he like, well, there's a lot of, so I didn't realize until late in the movie that, so he has this like technology where he like puts these like contacts in his eyes, and it records like what he's seen so that he can go back over it later. And I thought he was just being emo when he was like walking really slowly like around a crime scene, but no, he's recording the crime scene. But because he's recording the crime scene, he's like walking really slow, and all the cops are just looking at him like, what is wrong with this guy? Because he's just like walking very and I don't know, compared to like the like it's a little, I think it's a little different than like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. It's a little, I think Matt Reeves is a bit underrated in terms of directors like of his generation. He's in the kind of same realm as like JJ Abrams and Colin Trevorrow, who did the Jurassic World movie, and people like that. And I think he actually like understands a little bit more than them, like how to set up set up storytelling with set pieces in like a blockbuster movie. And so there's a lot of set pieces in this that are just really really fun. There's this it's also a movie I'll mention that feels like a movie. Like this is not like I saw the trailer for the next Doctor Strange movie before this, and like that's clearly like on a soundstage in Atlanta, and it feels like it's on a soundstage in Atlanta, and people are really good at computers, I guess. This one feels like an actual movie. Like there's this car chase through Gotham, but where Batman's chasing the Penguin, who's played by Colin Farrell in like this fat suit. Um, who like I guess his only note with how to play the Penguin is he watched it seems like he just watched one clip of The Sopranos on YouTube and was like, that's what I'm gonna do. Like the entire movie, he's like, "Hey Batman, what's going on?" It's super. Colin Farrell is so fucking fun in this movie. I was super entertained by him. But there's this car chase sequence where Batman's chasing him like around the city, and it feels like very it's not to like the level of like the Matrix or Mad Max or things like that, but it at least feels like you feel like tangible cars like blowing up and things. Like it does not feel like it's a CGI fest, which was kind of nice. There's another sequence where Batman's like trying to he's escaping this police the police department, and he like jumps and is trying to glide, and instead of it being like this really like you know epic glide sequence where he like glides and it's like da 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 da, it's like Batman, he like kind of like falls, and then you get like this close up of him, he's kind of like falling, and then he like hits this bridge and just does like and like falls, and you're like, oh, that's graceful Batman. Like it's very like very clumsy. And so I don't know, it's one though, we were talking earlier about length. This is almost, I think this is 3 hours long also. No reason for it to be 3 hours long, way too long. But I don't know, I think it's a little, I think it's a, I'm not a giant modern superhero movie fan. I think this is a little bit, it's not some masterpiece, but it's at least more interesting than a lot of what Marvel's cranking out at the time right now. At least it's sexier. Like Zoe Kravitz and Robert Pattinson are sexy together. It seems like they would actually have sex, which is a big improvement. I don't feel like any Marvel movie superhero has ever had sex. And Paul Dano plays like a edgelord YouTube like QAnon, not QAnon, like just edgelord guy that, like in such a he's very good at it. I don't know like what rabbit hole he went down to like play this character, but
well, it supposedly traumatized him. Like he was talking about
that's true.
how he was like scarred or whatever.
Guys, like this is just Batman movies. Like calm down. Like you don't have to traumatize yourself.
I
Like Jesus.
know.
But I don't know. I recommend. I think it's good. I think compared to other recent superhero movies. To be fair, I've honestly liked a lot of the recent DC comic movies. I like this one. I think we talked. Was it last year, the year before, about the Harley Quinn, the Birds of Prey? That was that one was super fun.
Yeah.
No, I've actually, I'm not I really don't have too much desire to like go and watch like the Zack Snyder Justice League ones. But like the Birds of Prey one, I thought was super good, and I thought this one was good as well. Mainly because I just wanted to watch Colin Farrell just be like, "Hey, the Batman, what you doing here?" for like 3 hours.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it seems like they're doing the grungy stuff better. Like they're doing the grungier superhero stuff better, I think.
Well, it just, again, like I said, like it feels like an actual movie. It doesn't feel like they did this on a soundstage in Atlanta. I mean, that's my biggest issue right now with Marvel is all those movies just feel like that. The Spider-Man movie just felt like, yeah, you did 90% of this on a soundstage in Atlanta. Like that, it doesn't feel like when I'm watching like these set pieces, I'm not engaged in the action because it feels like a computer simulation. Like it feels like if I was playing a PlayStation game or something. And this one felt like, it feels like, again, like you feel the punches. He blocks the action sequences. So like Batman gets beat up a bunch. It's not like it's, that's my kind of thing with action movies. I like to kind of see the main character get beat up a little bit. You think of like Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones, he gets beat up a bunch. It's not like he like is like some super sterling martial artist or whatever. It's just like, no, he just gets beat up. He's okay, but he's not amazing. And like this one feels it feels like that. It doesn't feel like they did a bunch of computer tricks. So but Batman, it's in theaters. I don't have to like. I mean, just if you want to go see it, I'm not gonna like sell it to you. It made $180 million this weekend, so whatever.
Dang.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be back talking about all the boys that we've loved before after this.
We're going to talk about all the boys. Let's make our lists. Who are the boys?
Number one.
Number one. That guy from that Peter Pan movie.
End of list.
What was his name? Jeremy Sumpter.
The random Peter Pan movie that came
Yeah,
out.
the Peter Pan movie with the little blonde boy.
Peter
It had.
Sumter. Is he still alive? Let's look.
Did you say Peter Sumter? It's Jeremy Sumter.
Jeremy Sumter.
He probably looks awful now. He had like a very baby face. But there's no way he looks good now. Like
he looks fine.
There's no way. I'm about to Google it too. There's no way that it transferred. Like he had such a baby face.
He looks about the same as how you would transition.
His head doesn't match. His face doesn't match his head.
Is this Peter Pan movie even? I don't remember. We should watch. Somebody tell us to do this on Patreon.
We should watch this. This is the one with Jason Isaacs as Hook, Captain Hook, and then also the one where I think Tinkerbell is like in love with him, and she gets all saucy whenever Wendy and Peter are like talking about kissing her with the thimbles or whatever. Like
that happens in all of them. I mean, even the Disney, even the Disney one.
Okay, JK. But this is the one with the British children, and they do the thing that's like, I do believe in fairies. I do.
They also
know what I'm talking about.
That's every Peter Pan, you just have them all going, I do believe in fairies.
Really? Are they British?
Most part, yeah. I mean, they came from London. Yeah.
What?
Okay, all right, let's do a Peter Pan series.
Which ones would we do?
You would do the Disney one, and then you would do Hook, and then you would do this one, and then you could do and then you could do either the Pan, the Joe Wright movie from 2015 with Hugh Jackman, or you could do there was a Peter Pan movie that came out a year or two ago by the guy who made Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
So there you go. See, look at that. It took us all of 3 minutes. We came up with a series. Peter Pan series.
Peter Pan based on Jessica's crush. Peter Pan.
Yeah. No, I would be curious to see, because you're not the only person who's like, who I know has like this deep devotion to this Peter Pan movie, and I'm like, I don't remember. I don't remember watching it. I mean, I'm sure it's fine. I don't remember it very.
I had the DVD, and I was like so in love with Jeremy Sumpter that I tried to figure out what his name was so that I could write it all over my diary. Mm-hmm. And I thought that it was Jason Isaacs, so I just wrote Jason Isaacs all over my diary. And then I found it later, and I looked it up, and I was like, that was that old crusty man.
I in love with Jason Isaacs.
So that was awkward. That was weird.
Oh my god!
I didn't know how to find the cast on the back of a box. So if
it's like the plot of this. It's like the plot of this movie, except the guy who comes up with the letter is Jason Isaacs, and you're like, what the hell is Jason Isaacs doing here?
If you're watching the YouTube version of this, you're getting these juicy details that the podcast is not going to get. That's so funny. All right. Let's talk about these boys.
Let's talk about these boys.
These boys.
All right. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part two of episode 394 of Cinematary. In this part, we'll be concluding our romance movie series with 2018's To All the Boys I've Loved Before. Be honest, I don't have much. I really don't have anything on this one. There wasn't a lot of notes on the production of this movie, other than I guess there's three of them.
There's three movies.
Three of them.
They were based off of books that were written by Jenny Han.
Mm-hmm. Um,
Yeah.
Well, the movie, this one, it's directed by Susan Johnson from a script by Sofia Alvarez. The film stars Lana Condor, Noah Centineo, Janelle Parrish, Anna Cathcart, Madeline Arthur, Emilia Baranak, Israel Broussard, and John Corbett. The plot of the movie is that Lara Jean is a 11th grader, and she writes secret soul-bearing letters to her 5 crushes, but she never meant to send them. But then her sister does send them, and all the boys who she's loved before figure it out. In 2018, Variety called it a pleasant and perfectly relatable situation comedy about a 16-year-old's awkward first attempts at dating. New York Magazine said, I didn't appreciate what a unicorn-like rarity a good solid boy is in a teen comedy until To All the Boys I Loved Before. And Vox 2018 said, it's a stylish pastel-tinted confection of a movie, one that knows every single one of the romantic tropes it's working with backwards and forwards and loves them with all its pure and wholesome heart. Yeah. So on that note, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Jessica, I'm going to start with you
Oh my
because you're the only
gosh.
person. So
I love those reviews. I love those reviews. Sometimes when you're reading the reviews on the movies, I'm like shaking my head and I'm like, why'd they say that? But I really liked those reviews for this movie because I think that it's true. I think like whenever I saw this movie for the first time, I had heard about these books because first of all, it was like one of the first like young adult romance novels that starred a Asian American. So Laura Jean is Korean American, her mom's Korean, her dad is white, and so it was like one of the first that had like a biracial Asian American character, which was like very specifically important to me because I'm also Filipino American. So I thought that that was like really cool. And also, I think the reason why I like this movie so much, and I know that Zach did not like it, so we're gonna get into this because we were getting into fisticuffs last night talking about this movie is I think the reason why I like it so much is because I love the character Laura Jean. I love her as a character so much. And I also think that if like 16-year-old Jessica were to watch this movie, I think that I would be like obsessed with it and like over the moon about how much it felt like me, like how Laura Jean felt so much like me as a character when I was in high school. I was very like I think that like other teen romance movies are kind of just like, you know, obviously following the beats, but the like tropes and all of those types of things. But like there are parts in this one where Laura Jean is talking and she is saying some like truths about herself that are very hard to admit, especially for like a 16-year-old, where she's saying like, I think that I've never dated anyone because I'm afraid that they're just going to walk out of my life and I'm going to lose them. And that is like a realization that I don't think most like 16-year-olds are just having when they're thinking about love and dating and how hard commitment can be at that age and like what first love is like and first lost and all of those types of things. But I think the movie handles them really well and does a lot of stuff with that. And I've seen the second film, and I don't think the second film is nearly as good as this one. There's something that the first one gets right that makes it so unique and charming, and it doesn't feel like it's overdone. That I don't think the other movies in the series like get at all. So there was like some kind of disconnect there, obviously.
what happens
Um,
in the other ones? I'm not. I'm just curious.
so in the second one, so at the end of the first one,
Yeah, she gets with the guy. Yeah.
she gets with Peter, and then
Yeah.
in the second one, it shows she has to do like a senior project where or it's like over the summer, I think, where she has to volunteer at a place, and she tries to volunteer at the same place as him, but she actually gets placed in like a retirement home, and there's another dude that is there, and it turns out he is one of the recipients of her letter that she was like supposed to send it to him. I think it's John Ambrose, I think is what the character's name is. But she starts to have this flirty thing with him, and then her and Peter are having problems. Like they're like arguing and fighting about different things, and she is starting to kind of fall for this other dude. And then at the end of the second movie, she kisses John Ambrose and then realizes I'm in love with Peter. Like this, I don't. It was all the chase with this guy, and Peter knows who I really am, and so I just want to be with Peter.
Mhm.
And the ending of the second movie, I remember too, because I think they like kiss in her backyard, and then they float up into the air or something. And I remember that being like, like
Okay.
I remember that being like a pretty memorable thing.
Just like, oh, well, all right, see ya. What's the third one? They just like get married?
The third one, it's so funny because that is like the most Googled thing. I haven't seen the third one. I want to watch it just so I can
Okay.
have closure on this character. But
I'm just
they
gonna Google what happens.
don't tell me, don't tell me. It's
That's
like
fine.
it's their senior year, and she goes to Korea with her family, and then comes back, and then I don't know what happens. But they're going to college, and who knows if they're gonna go to the same college.
The
Like, I didn't date in high school. It seems stressful. I don't know. I don't know. Dating in high school is like very stressful. You have like the mean girl who's like, you kissed my boyfriend, and I liked him, and you spun the bottle and you kissed him even before we were boyfriend girlfriend. So now I hate you forever. And it was like that was her big reveal, is that you just literally kissed him on the lips for spin the bottle, and that's why she's like making your life a living hell. It's like,
you released.
girl, come on.
I like so like like in this movie they released. There's a scene between Peter, who's the love interest, and
He's like
is it
lacrosse
is it is it
meathead.
Laura Jean or Laura Jean?
I don't know. It's
Okay, it's
what
like
do
Laura.
they say?
It's like Lara Croft and
Laura,
Tomb
what do
Raider. It's
they
like
say?
I
Laura
don't know. I
Jean?
think it's Laura Jean, but it's spelled
Laura Jean?
Lara,
I don't
whatever.
know. I
Laura
don't think
Jean.
it
So
matters.
so they
I don't
have like this scene like where he's like in a hot tub, and then they
know.
like make I assume, they make out. They're not having sex, correct?
No, they make out, but she is like she's in a nightgown.
Yeah, she's in a night.
She's wearing a bra under her
Yeah,
nightgown, which like
she's
who
pretty
does that?
close. She's pretty
She's
clothed.
she's wearing a bra under her nightgown, which like who does that? They had to
Well,
do that for this movie because it's like PG-13.
and it's a Netflix like high school movie, so you have to do that.
But
But no,
yeah, she
it
gets
becomes
into
this
the
it becomes
yeah.
this whole thing where the mean girl like had videotaped her,
Yeah,
but then
yeah,
they're
yeah.
like talking about like it's a sex tape, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? I like it
Yeah.
that kind of threw me where I'm just like, what movie are we in now? and
Yeah, it was like,
and then
well,
like that's like that gets solved where the sister's like, and then the sister reported it to
to
Instagram
Instagram.
as child pornography, and you're like, what
Oh
the fuck
man.
is going on right now? We were in this like, will they, won't they, and now we're reporting child pornography to Instagram. Like, what's going on? Um, no, I'm just kind of whatever with this movie. I mean,
Oh, I knew that you were just like sighing. You're like, oh.
no, and honestly, like, so here's my thing, and here's the one issue with this movie. There's no there's no tension. There's no
What?
tension. There's no tension at all. I mean, there's her own personal tension, but like it kind of sets it up like you have the neighbor guy who dated her sister, who her
Mm-hmm.
sister breaks up with to go to Scotland for college. Which do they ever explain why she goes to Scotland for
Well,
college?
it kind of implies that she wanted to just get as far away from as possible.
But Scotland,
I mean,
anyway,
yeah, hell yeah.
anyways.
Have you seen that lady on TikTok that just quit her job and moved to Scotland? She's having a great time.
Oh,
You
and
gotta
then
go.
and then you look at that neighbor guy, and you're like, I mean, I've watched like Outlander,
Mhm.
so I would go and bang,
Yeah,
hot
yeah.
Scottish guys than this little scrawny meat thing. Anyway, so you have like the neighbor guy who she likes, and then you have you have Peter who's,
Mhm.
but it never really like sets up an actual like which she like honestly she ignores this dude for the whole damn movie. That but that by the end of it they kind of try to have this thing where he goes, no, you need to go be with him. But I'm like, you never really established a relationship. I mean, you implied
Mhm.
that there was a relationship between these two people as friends, but like you never actually, there's not that scene where she like kisses him or something,
Mm,
or
mhm,
it in like
mhm.
kind of is confused. Like it like honestly, it's very like focused on Peter the entire movie. And so that's why I say there's no tension, because you have all these other things happening with the mean girl and like her trying to make sense of the whole relationship, but there is not really like a tension between the guys. She's very focused on this one guy the entire
Mhm.
movie. And so then you have this other character who's just kind of like a, like honestly you could just toss him out of the movie because he's just kind of left to just flounder there for most of the time, because literally his whole,
Mm.
once the sister breaks up with him, his whole role is just like to glare at her and like shake his head and then like walk on.
And like show up in the middle of the night in a hood out of the bushes. Like,
He's like, what are you doing over there?
what are
And
you doing?
you're like, all right, hood man, like calm down.
Yeah, I
um
guess that's fair. He to me, he has like a stronger part in the beginning of the movie
yeah, he's
because
very prominent.
he's in all of her fantasies.
Well,
Like,
that's the thing, is so like it's all prompted where she's like infatuated in love with this guy.
mhm,
And so
mhm,
my thing was just like, well, can we see you like actually be in love with this guy? Because
mhm.
instead, once the letters are sent out, she just completely like ghosts and ignores this dude for the whole movie. And you're like, well
Yeah,
then
yeah.
what what was the point of the lead up to this whole situation? I don't know. So
Mhm.
that was my
Well,
thing.
yeah. Well, like I think the whole point is that like Josh is in her head as like the fantasy, and that is all she has because she doesn't like she's too afraid to pursue anything else. And then once the letters are out, the fantasy ends because the letters are out and everything that she had thought about these guys, they know now. So then the reality begins with Peter because he is like actually the person that she is being like romantically involved with. So it's kind of like entering like
Yeah,
a different thing.
but you still have to kind of like, you still have to, I think, use the other guy to show her working out of the fantasy.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah.
the fantasy's broken with the letters, but like I think, I don't, I just think that they kind of throw him away so
Mhm.
quickly. And he, like you said, like he's super prominent for the beginning of this movie. Like he's like been like her best friend forever,
Mhm,
was
mhm.
dating her sister, was and like they were always hanging out. And then she just like, again, he just becomes like nothing for the rest of the movie, and you're just like, what the hell happened to this guy? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's an easy pick between him and Peter. Like Peter's clearly much more charming and a easier pick than this guy. This guy kind of just looks like a toothpick the entire time. but but
I like Josh.
he's a toothpick. He's a
Ah,
toothpick.
I loved that he was like your Bon Iver looking ass. Like whenever he was like making fun of him. I was like, damn,
You got wrecked, Josh.
you got wrecked.
Um, no, and the other thing is, I think honestly, this is probably the best, one of the better examples of like the recent Netflix high school romances. Which I'll be completely open that these are not movies made for me. So it has
I
there's
was
really,
gonna say, what other one have you even watched?
I've seen, what's the it's gonna sound dumb. What's the other one with the Asian lead?
Like it's a Netflix high school movie?
Hmm.
Is it a movie or is it a TV show?
It's a
Because
movie.
that okay, because that they have that like Never Have I Ever show that Mindy Kaling like produces.
There's like, I don't know, and then you have that. You have like the kissing booth, which has the guy from this
I
movie,
did not.
correct? I didn't
I
watch it,
don't. I don't
but this one I think is
know.
probably like the better, like probably the best example out of all
Mm,
of them. It seems like,
yeah.
because I think that the whole conceit of her sending the letters Like that's a good conceit. That's a good
Yeah,
setup.
yeah, yeah.
But to
I
me, oh god.
Well, and I think that that's the reason why this movie works and is more interesting than the rest of them, because you
Yep.
don't have that. Like that's gone now. Like that is like they reveal the people get the letters, and they try to
Yeah.
be like there was a letter that got sent back from camp, so we never see that guy and don't know who he is. And I don't know. I don't think he was in the second one, and I don't know if he comes back in the third one. So they leave two guys to be revealed. So it's like okay. It's like tries to keep the
They have
like
one guy who they're just like, yeah, he's gay, like
yeah,
immediately.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like the guy who's gay, the guy who was dating her sister, and then Peter.
And so the other thing with it is just I feel like I saw other reviews that I didn't use in this, so that's fine. That's probably why you liked it. But it is just it's just kind of it does feel very like kind of cobbled together, built off of parts of other things, and that's not
Mhm,
necessarily a bad thing. Every like rom-com, I mean, you look at all the movies romances and such that we've talked about in the series, all of them kind of build off of each other, but at least there's like a they use that like baseline and then kind of do a little visual flair with it, and like at least try to kind of make it unique. And I think this the issue I have with this is just more like Netflix movies in general that just look very
mhm,
stale. And that's not it's not just romance movies or high school romance movies, it's any movie that like Netflix is producing. And so to me, like it just because that has such a stale quality, it doesn't feel like there's any, at least in my opinion, like any personality that can be exuded. Like I do, like Lara Jean is a good, she's a good character, in the actor Lana Condor does a great job with her, and I think that the chemistry between her and Peter is strong. He's very charming, but I don't think they're getting any help from the production side to really like exude personality. You think of something like, I think is kind of in the same level as this, but probably like the best version of it is something like Booksmart, which is
mhm.
a movie that also is kind of dealing with similar things as well, but at least has like a like it does have like a personality to it in its visual flair that like makes it feel like something unique. I never really got that sense with this.
Yeah, I think something like Booksmart is definitely like way more stylized. I think that when you are working with a company like Netflix, you're probably not encouraged to
No,
do
there's the
stuff like
house
that.
style. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're not encouraged to do stuff like that. One thing that I did really like though is that there were a couple of shots that I really liked the way that they were set up. I love the color palette of this movie. Like the pastels were really pretty, and I her outfits were amazing. And like I really like whenever they're going over the contract, and there is this like pink almost like cherry tree that is like around them, and it is like taking up most of the background, and you have her positioned at the forefront of the shot, and then he's kind of like off to the side, and you have them like negotiating this contract, and then you see them shake hands. And I remember I had that as my background of my laptop computer for like a long time, because I just liked the way that it was like set up with the tree in the background. It was very pretty.
Mhm.
But there were like a couple of shots like that that I remember being like, this looks better than I most movies on Netflix look. So
Mhm. And yeah, I mean, I just think I think unfortunately it's just the nature, like because it's not like somebody like Susan Johnson has a degree of autonomy like somebody like a Martin
mm,
Scorsese or a Zack Snyder or some of the other people who have worked with Netflix have, where they at least get to implement a little more of their style even though they're working for Netflix. Um, I think the issue I have with is just I think that that's a way that you can accentuate a lot of the personality. You think of like something you think of other rom-coms, including like stuff that we've talked about in the series like Dirty Dancing um or like When Harry Met Sally, like they very much exude like this kind of personality to them, like from the movie. And this movie, because strictly really because it was made with Netflix. Just doesn't really feel like it has a personality. I think that holds it back because I do think that again, like I do think that the two leads are charming and like have like could do something, but I think that again, like I said before, like they're just inhibited by this house style, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
just I don't think they're really given the chance to kind of be personable and be romantic, and then also kind of have this style behind them that like accentuates that. Like the color palette and that stuff is nice, but I don't know. It's not really. I think also it needs to be a little bit more cinematic, and there's a couple of shots that are there were a couple choices. I wouldn't call them like it's not like one perfect shot or something. But she does make these choices where it's two scenes where Laura Jean goes to talk to Peter and he's on the lacrosse field, and it's interesting because um she like frames it where she does it kind of like a long shot, and he's back in the back of the frame in the lacrosse goal, and like Laura Jean is in a close up and she like goes Peter, and then it cuts over to him in this long shot, and it's such a strange, I don't know, I think it is like a designed um decision, like you kind of it's very singular, like you're just getting him, um but that kind of stuff is very few and far between. You think of
Mm-hmm.
I think the most of the stuff is just very house style and very Netflix designed, and like I mean I think that operates well for what it needs to be, but to me
Mm-hmm.
I think we respond to these romances and these rom-coms and things like we've talked about in the series, because not only are the central romances compelling to us, but also the movies have kind of this swooning style that like is also kind of manipulating you to fall in love with these people, like think about like Dirty Dancing and how like that movie makes you fall in love with them, not just because they're two hot people, but also because it gets you like it kind of traps you in this steamy room, and the way it cuts the dancing sequences and stuff, like how are you
Mm-hmm.
not going to be in love with these people by the end of the movie?
Right.
And that's just something I think overall, I guess would be kind of like my takeaway from the series as a whole is I think it's tough to make a good romance.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to have the people with like I'm talking about with like chemistry. You definitely have to have that for sure. But I think you also have to have like a visual eye to kind of, because you have to use cinematic techniques as you would in any other type of movie to kind of manipulate the audience into really like um getting caught up in the romance. And I think that's, we talked about it a couple, I think at the beginning of the series, and we threw out like where are the rom-coms, where are the romances now, and a lot of them are TV shows, but I think a lot of them are also just lost because they get um because I think people, they just kind of toss two actors in front of the screen and go, oh, like you'll fall in love with them. And I'm like, no, you also have to kind of use movie techniques
Mm-hmm.
to manipulate the audience and compel them to fall in love with these people as well. I think that's what works in the best examples that we've covered over the course of this series. I don't know how you feel on that, Jessica.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that this movie uses the also the whole thing of like you have to have something in there that's like a plot device that is like, okay, how are we gonna make these two people have to spend time with each other? And they do the whole contract thing where they're like, you have to pretend to date me so I can make this other person jealous, and then
Mm-hmm.
you are pretending to make this other person jealous, and then they have the rules which are like, don't tell anybody and no kissing, which makes you want to kiss them more. Everyone knows that. Whenever you say no kissing, that makes you want to kiss the person more. Come on now. But yeah, and so they like it's super. I mean, now when you're watching it as an adult, you're like, yes, of course, this is like when you're a teenager, you're like, ooh, this is spicy. Like this
Yeah.
is you're like, ooh, a thing that draws them together, but they can't kiss. Like that there's so much like spiciness in here. And as an
Well,
adult, you're
there's
like,
something silly about it, they're drawing up a contract to have a
yeah.
relationship, you know?
Yeah, and then as an adult, you're like, they're gonna fall in love. Duh, they're gonna fall in love. Like this, duh, hello. Like this is the formula. This is what happens in movies like this. They're like, I'm not gonna fall in love with you, and then immediately they fall in love with each other. And so to me, like it's still it's their chemistry that makes it not boring because you
Yeah.
know that they are going to fall in love with each other. It is very obvious, but it's like the chemistry between them that keeps it going. And like we talked about the hot tub scene, but I still think I still giggle like a little schoolgirl whenever I watch that. It's because I was just like, this is like so spicy, you know. It's not like euphoria or whatever, but it's still
Yeah.
it's still like
They're not, like, shooting up and then, like, having graphic sex. You're like, "This is what it is."
it's like I would prefer to go to this high school than the Euphoria
It's
high
true.
school.
I'll agree with you on that.
It's like good grief.
People are getting, like, shot down in bathtubs while they're heroin in Euphoria High School.
Yeah, it's not a good they're not having a good time. They are
No,
having a good time at this high school
that's
and
true.
to all the boys I've loved before. But I am thinking on like why did we include this movie in the series? And
I
it
just think you guys
seemed
hate me, so
it just it seemed I think to Jesse and I and all the people who contributed to
to all
putting
the people who have contributed
to
before.
all the people who contributed before we were looking for a modern take on that whole like formula, and also something that had like a person of color as the lead. And this
Mhm,
felt like the breakout like obvious choice because when it came out it was super popular. I
mhm.
remember like when this movie hit Netflix, I had a bunch of girlfriends that were like, we're getting together, we're watching this movie. And it was like a big deal.
Mhm.
And I rewatched it and I still felt very fondly of it and was glad that I did. And I also was like checking in on Laura Jean and Peter because I have no idea what the conclusion of their relationship was. So I kind of want to know now.
You gotta watch the other ones now.
Not the
Yeah, tell me
second
what
one.
happens.
I want to watch. I guess I'll watch the third one. She goes to Korea, which does seem interesting to me.
You mentioned at the beginning that but her mom in the movie has died, so she's not
Hmm.
around. You
Yeah.
didn't mention that.
Oh well, her mom.
That's a whole big thing.
Yeah, it is a whole big thing. You're right. That is a whole that is a whole big thing in there. Also, like I like how in the film he specifically gets her this because they talk about like all the Korean food that mom made, and there are lots of points in the movie where they kind of talk about her culture.
Mhm.
And I one of the things that I thought was like super cute was that he like drove all the way to the Asian market to get her like Korean yogurt drink as a surprise for their trip, like a little snack for her. And I thought that that was so sweet.
It
I
was it was sweet, but I didn't love how they it it would have been a sweeter, let me just say, it would have been a sweeter moment if she like saw in his bag or so, because like he just says it, he's like, I went to the Korean market to get this yogurt drink for you. She's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
just it would have been sweeter if she like was not paying attention to him or was angry and then like looked and saw that he had it. Then it would have been kind of sweet. Instead,
Yeah.
he's just like, by the way, I'm awesome. And she's like, oh, you're so sweet.
Yeah, well, they were in a fight or whatever, and
They were in
it
a
was like
hot
the
tub.
climax or whatever. But also a thing that was cracking me up when I rewatched this was, don't you just love whenever there's like the big climax of the movie where all of the characters come together and find out the truth, and then
Oh
they're
yeah,
like, they do it in the front of her house.
yeah.
And the Josh guy just like comes out of the dark, like out of nowhere. And then her two sisters open the door at the same time that she's yelling at Josh about being in love with him, and Margot's like, what do you mean? And then one of my favorite things is when people stomp off, like when they find out the truth, and they're like, what do you mean? And then they dramatically stomp off.
And then she's like angrily like folding clothes when she goes into her room later. You're just like, oh my god! I still can't get over that she like went to like she's like, I gotta get away. I'm gonna go to Scotland, and
I
they
was
just casually say that. They're just like, yeah, she's just going to college in Scotland,
yeah.
as you do.
She
Can I
had to
can
be gone. She
can
had
I
to be gone
still
for some
can I
reason.
still just not like the characters because they're all a bunch of rich people?
Yeah. But you went and watched the Batman. Bruce Wayne is rich, so you should have hated the Batman if you hate rich people so much.
I
So
was just
take
there
that.
to see. I was just there to see Zoe Kravitz. So
Wow.
yeah, that was
Ha-
the plot that I was looking forward to.
happy International Women's Day,
Happy
everybody.
International Women's.
That's when we're recording this. And now we've concluded talking about this movie. Now Zach and I are going to take turns talking about all the boys that we've loved before.
Well, you're
Number one.
if you want to know all the boys that we've loved before, you have to watch the YouTube version. We'll
That's
just say
right.
that we
Yeah, that's
talk.
a good plug. I reveal my number one boy that I've loved before.
If you go to the Cinematary YouTube, you'll find the one boy that Jessica loved before.
You'll never
Who is?
guess who it is.
You'll never guess. Coming up
All right.
next. All right. Well, that'll wrap up. If you want to watch all the boys I loved before, I don't know if anybody caught it, but it's on Netflix. I don't know if we mentioned that in the episode, but all right. Well, that'll wrap up this episode in this series. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we list all the movies we talked about in this episode. Head over to patreon.com/Cinematary if you'd like to support the show. We mentioned last week, but we also have the $1 if you the throw us a bone tier of the podcast. We'll be adding the $10 tier hopefully soon. If you'd like to give us $10, and with that tier, you can also have access to my Hulu and Disney Plus, because that seems to be what the $10 tier
No
leads for people.
way.
It's
No
just
way.
all the people on the $10 tier. That's what happens.
No.
Thank you to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Corey Willingham, Harry Eskin, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Machadi, Titus Arthur, Tyler Chandler, and Whitney Rio Ross. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, oh god, here it is. So next week we're gonna be kicking off a new series. I think the way to describe it is it's like YouTube video essays.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Andrew made this.
It's curated by Andy Kyle. You
By
know
Andy
him.
Kyle. Yeah,
You know
we
him
all
as
know him.
Andrew
Love him.
Swafford.
We all love Andrew.
We love him. We know him. It's Andrew Swafford.
So it's it's all these YouTube. So like it's gonna be similar to kind of like the music video, but so this first episode's on ContraPoints. The next episode's anti-fascism.
That's right. Yep.
It is. The next one is just Lindsay Ellis, then Shannon Strucci, H Bomb plus Olsen, and then that'll be it. Then we'll get to episode 400. So
there you go.
If any of those words meant something to you, well, have we got a series for you? I think it'll be interesting. It'll be fine. Like, just give us a chance. They did this. I wasn't really involved in the planning because this is a SWAF production.
You let us have creative freedom. The members of Cinematary have creative freedom.
Yeah,
to choose things like having a Shrek series and all of the other stuff that we do here at Cinematary.
I just don't. I understand. I just don't know how to describe what the series is. So
Yeah,
that's what it is.
it's like YouTube video essays. It's like
Like
the art. Yeah,
lefty YouTube
the
video. Yeah,
the art of YouTube video
it's gonna get
essays.
political.
Oh yeah, it's gonna get super critical. I personally am not a person who sits and just watches essays on YouTube. In fact, I get bored out of my mind watching that stuff. So I'm probably not gonna be on any of these episodes, but you should pay attention to it if you like that kind of stuff.
You should watch it if you like. So anyway, until next week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you then.
Bye.